Hello.
Hello.
Hey, everyone. Hey, Austin. Austin, have you met Julie yet? I know you two have exchanged emails, but have you met in virtual or in person yet?
Not
No,
in a face-to-face manner. Nice to meet you, Julie.
you too.
All right. Hey, Dan.
PK, I
What's up?
forgot to ask you if you can hear me okay. Audio's good,
Yes.
right? Okay,
Audio's great. You're
just
great.
checking.
Yep. Sweet. Cool. And we have a couple others. I think we'll just wait about 3 or 4 minutes and we can get going. Um, nice. So, Andrew, AZ, where are you coming in from? Would love to know more about yourself and your brewery as well.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Cool. I work for the Arizona Craft Brewers Guild, so I like to keep in touch with how to help our members.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, and we can definitely chat afterwards as well, Andrew, for either Julie or myself when it comes to involvement in the Arizona Craft Brewers Guild and just doing some more things about this. Absolutely. Always happy to connect with more state guilds.
Right on.
Nice. And I see we have Carmone as well. Maybe. Okay. We can come back. And Judy. Hi, Judy.
Hi, I'm a
Hi.
I'm a board member of a small brewery in North Carolina, and I'm still learning everything I can about it.
Nice. What's the brewery called?
Tarboro Brewing Company.
Harborough. Nice. Very cool. Okay.
Andrew, I actually have a t-shirt from you guys, even though I'm in Colorado. Um, y'all did a very hilarious April Fool's Day like Space Guild promotion.
Right. That was
I
pretty
bought
fun.
I bought into that. I got t-shirts.
Cool.
One of my
Very
favorite t-shirts. It's hilarious.
awesome.
I have
What
been in the audience at a bunch of your CDC talks, Billy. They're great.
Oh, thank you. Awesome. I appreciate it.
Nice. And we also have Dane, I guess. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Dayne.
Yes.
Hi.
I don't think. Hi. Am I? Okay. Sound is on.
Yeah, we got your audio. Yeah, what brewery
Oh,
are you
okay,
with?
cool.
And yeah, it would be good to just get your quick intro as well.
Oh, sure. I am the sales manager at a brewery in Colorado Springs, Goat Patch.
Cool.
Oh, hey, you're in my backyard. Nice to meet
Oh,
you.
yeah. Oh, nice to meet you too. Come by. I'm there a lot.
I say my backyard. I'm all the way up in Broomfield, but I'm only like
Oh,
90 minutes away from you.
yeah. I just did a quick jaunt. Make it happen.
Yeah, Dane, I'm in Denver myself. Yeah, so I think it was at Johanna that's with you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell her I said hi. I used to be with
Yeah.
Virtue Malting.
I will. I
Cool.
will.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Where are you at now? Sorry, I would put my camera on, but I am driving.
I am the Colorado rep and West Coast rep for the Fifth Ingredient in Beer30. So I am a
Oh,
part
okay.
of the software company.
Got you. Okay. Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, and Julie and
Yeah.
Dan, I'm sure you two, especially at CBC, you'll definitely meet each other as well if you haven't already.
Yeah, Julie, I think we bumped shoulders over the years from time to time. So lovely to see you.
Good to see you too.
Nice. So I think we'll get going at 5:05 Eastern. So I'm gonna screen share. Cool. Are we at a good spot? Can everybody see the screen? Yes. Awesome. All right. Cool. So this should be fun. All right. So from here, welcome to the oh shit list. What to do when things go wrong in wholesale. My name is Pulkit Agrawal. I am the founder and CEO of Beer30, and we have with us the lovely Julie Rhodes. And we'll get into our introductions here in a moment as well, but thank you all for joining in. We're going to be recording this call, so we will definitely email you a copy afterwards. If you have questions, feel free to add them into the chat at any point. And what we'll also do is field questions as they come in throughout the conversation, throughout the webinar, or even at the end. So the more questions, the better. Nobody wants to just hear both Julie and I just talk for an hour. The more interaction we get, the better it's going to be for everybody. So yeah, just really looking forward to this and really aiming to go from there. So actually, Julie, how about we get your introduction first, and then I'll give mine afterwards.
Sure. I'll keep it very short because I know quite a few people on this call, which is cool. So I'm Julie Rhodes. I'm the owner operator of Not Your Hobby Marketing Solutions. I tell people if they have customers, they have a business and not a home brewing hobby anymore. And I'm not trying to be mean, but just letting you know that when you get a business license, it's a little bit different ball game. I got started thinking that I was only going to do marketing consulting, hence my business name, and I'm just too lazy to change my DBA. So, but I do more than just marketing consulting. So I'm coming up on my 5th year anniversary doing this, which is kind of exciting. But I help people with their sales strategies, more particularly wholesale. I do a little bit of tap room, but mostly wholesale. Data analysis, demand planning, digital marketing, wholesaler management, expansion planning, product launches, stuff like that. So I won't bore you with my background in the industry, but I've been in the food and beverage space for like 20 plus years. I've got a BA in marketing. I'm a mentor for the BA. I sit on a bunch of committees and do fun stuff. And I also, have a writing habit that is supported by my consulting habit. So you might see some of my publications in like horse drinking and craft brewing business and stuff like that. So that's me in a nutshell.
Thanks, Julie. And so for everybody's awareness, my name is Pulkit Agrawal, also go by PK in the industry. I'm the founder and CEO of The Fifth Ingredient. For those of you who don't know, the fifth ingredient really comes from the fact that 4 ingredients in beer: water, malt, hops, yeast, and the 5th ingredient is data. And so everything that we do here at The Fifth Ingredient revolves around how data can help breweries out. And Beer30 is our flagship software system that is now used in over 450, 460 breweries around the world in about 19 countries, and really is designed to help breweries track their data from grain to glass. So everything from raw material purchasing, brewing process, filter, ferment, bright tank package, lab quality, sales, accounting, demand planning, and future forecasting all goes through Beer30 for breweries. And the beauty behind this is that it's very modular, so you can pick and choose what your business needs. And really, it's designed in a way that you can start as low as our smallest customer does about 70 barrels a year, and our largest does about 65 to 70,000 barrels. So full spectrum, and really just excited to chat with you all today about the wholesale side. So with that, we'll get into our agenda. So Julie, I'll have you kind of explain what we're talking about today.
Yeah. So would I love to get into everything that goes wrong into wholesale? Absolutely. None of you have that much time, I guarantee you, especially for today. So I kind of sat down and I was like, okay, what are some of like the most common questions or, things that I'm getting pinged with, like either from my client partners, or I have a group coaching program, so I get a lot of input from there as well. And it's people just like you that are in the industry, small to medium sized business owners that are selling in distribution. And honestly, distribution sales, like in the wholesale channel, it's not super easy right now. Like we all know, I won't go into all the numerous reasons, but we're kind of in a valley with craft beer at the moment, and we're having kind of a movement of like distributor consolidation. We have regulatory changes. The economy is changing. The drinkers are changing. So there's a lot of like dynamic stuff going on in wholesale right now. So I thought, well, let's go ahead and pick out some things that we can just talk about with like, hey, this is happening, this is a problem, and come to you with a few solutions that you can get solved with software, which is nice. So we're going to give you some tech-based solutions so that you can maintain those really nice, solid, dependable account relationships and also distributor relationships. So that's what we're going to do today. And then we're going to open it up for questions after that.
It's going to be great. Yeah. Thank you. So yeah, let's get into topic number 1, lost placements and lost accounts.
Yes. I hate to talk about this. I have a very dynamic relationship with this subject. So something that would be kind of a red flag in the wholesale channel would be a lost placement or a lost account. Now, first, whenever I use acronyms, I always like to make sure I explain them just in case somebody doesn't know what a POD is. It is a point of distribution. So if you think about it this way, the way that you're selling in the wholesale channel, you have, and this is easier with an example. Say I own a liquor store and PK is my supplier, right? Julie's liquor store is considered like a buying account. For those of you that are familiar with like Lily Pad or VIP or something, it might be referred to as like a good buy. That's also considered like a buying account. It's the actual retail establishment that is purchasing their product. A POD or point of distribution, also, if you speak VIP like I do, it's called an effective placement, is the actual like SKU or item that you have within that establishment. So if you think about like your distribution footprint, you have all these buying accounts that kind of shows like where you're getting all your products to, like how many places you're selling to. But then you want to go deeper into that and seeing like the breadth of your actual footprint in saying like, okay, Julie's liquor store is a buying account. That's one like good buy, right? But I might be carrying 5 of PK's products. So now I've got 5 points of distribution within one buying account. And the thing that you first and foremost, if this intimidates you a little bit, take baby steps. Just start with watching like lost accounts and then kind of go deeper into like lost placement. So a lost account is somebody who usually buys from you on like a regular basis, and then maybe they just stop for some reason, or it becomes inconsistent or sporadic. And we call that sort of like a leak in the sales pipeline, like a leaky sales pipeline of, something falling through the cracks, but we don't know where it's actually happening. Your first line of defense in this case is going to be honestly just tracking your sales in some kind of, whether you choose to do that through Beer30 or if you're just getting started and you start kind of practicing with a spreadsheet, but you need to be tracking where your product is going into retailers so that you can figure out who's buying what and who buys on a normal basis so that you can catch the inconsistencies, right? That would be an example of a lost account if something like disappeared. And I'll tell you right now, a lot of the time it's a mistake. It's not really like you, it's more of them. Like maybe there's a manager turnover and somebody forgot to order something, or maybe there was like another brand that was having like a big promotion and they sort of took, more like shelf space or floor space or cooler space than they normally did. And it's going to cycle out. Also, you could have a lost account because it's somebody that just wants like specialty or seasonal items from you. So that's another reason why it might disappear from the regular rotation. But you'll never know unless you're actually like tracking things on a normal basis. Now to go a little bit deeper into lost placement, this gets a little bit more detailed, but it's the same concept, right? It's that we're tracking sales directly to accounts and seeing like, okay, Julie's liquor store, I normally buy 5 items from PK and his brewery, but say last month and the month before that, I only bought 2. So that means I've got 3 PODs that have just kind of fallen off the radar. And as a diligent salesperson, I would want to know exactly where that is, right? So I would need a way to do that. And another thing is if I'm going to make a plan to actually address the lost placement or the lost account and try to recover, I need to know where I've been, right? So this is where something like a CRM tool comes into play. That stands for Customer Relationship Management Platform or software, whatever you want to call it. And that actually allows you to track what you've done in the market, like where you've gone, who you've talked to, what you talked about, if there were follow-up items that you needed to do. And so that's how we kind of combat this issue. And I'll tell you what, right now, this is something that is one of the easiest things to fix just with a little bit of help from data, right? Like this is not rocket science. It's just a matter of I'm looking at my chart of accounts, I'm looking at what they're buying, and can I consistently see like where there's spaces? And PK, if you want to flip ahead to your visual that you
Yeah.
put on here from what we call a gap report in the industry. And so with something like this kind of dashboard, you would be able to see, okay, these are my buying accounts in like this time period. And what you're looking for is these little holes. And I hope that everybody can see this. What you're looking for is like the blank spaces. And that's why this is called a gap report. And you would want to, I don't know, I would say there's no standard for like how many months to put together. I will say kind of rule of thumb in the sales world is that if somebody hasn't bought from you in the past 90 days or 3 months, that it's probably considered like a lost account or a lost placement. It's feasible to think that like if they haven't purchased in 3 months, it's probably sort of out the window. That's not the case with everything, there's exceptions to the rule, but if you're able to look at a spread like this where you've got like 6, 7, 8 months at a time on your screen, and you can see, 32-bit arcade has a couple of gaps in there. So that would be somebody that I would want to make a note of when I'm like planning my sales route, to go back out, pop my head in, send somebody an email, shoot someone a text message, talk to my distributor, want to see the lay of the land of what's going on to see if I can recover the spots that I lost. Hopefully that
think
makes
adding
sense to
on-
everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think adding on to that as well, regardless of whether you're using Beer30 or like as a great example, Julie put in this spreadsheet, which is effectively doing very similar concepts, right? So the key here
Mhm.
is that it doesn't matter whether you're using a spreadsheet or if you're using something like Beer30, you need to be able to track this analysis and this data set month over month, right? And the key actionable insight that comes from this is being able to even look at, to Julie's point about PODs, being able to look at this data set and be like, oh, hey, the beer garden bought 3 barrels and 4 barrels and 7.5 barrels. Like, that's awesome. But here we're seeing like, oh, there's actually a downtrend that's happening with Bev Group. And so this becomes a really good way for you to start actually, not only is it looking at that, as Julie mentioned, the actual like gap pieces, but also really using that data to understand just how things are trending month over month and how they're deviating from more sales happening for that account or less sales happening as well.
Yeah, and this was a very, very simple like spreadsheet that I had. Sometimes when I work with clients, I start them with like baby steps of like, hey, let's just take some sample data and let me show you, like, I'm going to filter out these zeros and color code them so that you can, your eye is like automatically drawn to them. Like, why did the barn only take 7 CEs in September and then they haven't done anything else, but their total is like 16. So when did that happen? Where did it happen? What did they take? And what else do I need to do, or what else do I need to talk to them about to make it more consistent?
Yeah.
So it's just like finding little hidden sales opportunities in your data.
Great. And yeah, effectively, the key here is data in, data out, right? If you have garbage going into the data, you have garbage coming out. If you're really staying on top of your data and making sure that it's very clean and very focused on making sure you're closing books, you're making sure you're staying on top of week over week, month over month deliveries, the better the insights you are going to be able to get from that information.
Exactly.
Cool. All right, let's talk about topic number 2, retaining share of mind with distributor personnel. So
this is a big challenge, like all in itself. I could probably talk about this for hours. I think a lot of people know at this point, not every wholesaler is like this, first of all. Just so you know, I'm not like anti-distributor. I'm not anti-three-tier system. I work with other systems too in other countries. Honestly, every single one of them has their pros and cons. So I am completely unbiased. But one thing that has become pretty relevant just in the past, I would say less than a decade, but it's kind of been working, is that we have fewer and fewer distributors across the US. So we have fewer choices, but there's more brands, right? So like the distributor number has gone down, but the number of brands that are being sold in retail have actually gone up. So the hardest thing to do is when you're aligned with a wholesaler, it's sort of what we call like fight for mind share or share of mind or fight for attention. The last thing that you want to happen is to have, your like growing sort of fledgling brand or like craft brand get piled in with all these other big brands, and you sort of get like pushed to the back of the line, and that's not fun. And I get asked, this is probably the number one question that I get asked about all the time is, I have a wholesale partner, but they don't really pay attention to me, but I need to increase sales. So how the hell do I do that, right? Like, how do I do that? And I have one word for you, and that's proactive. You have to be a proactive supplier partner at this point. Yes, I realize that a wholesaler arrangement is a partnership and it should be a two-way street and 50-50, but it doesn't necessarily always work like that in the real world. So I like for people to just be prepared to know like some best practices for being a proactive supplier partner, so that you can, retain some more of that mind share with your distributor partner. So the first thing that I want to talk about, and I have a very old mentor, like old school mentor, that told me this a long time ago, and it has sat with me so like literally like decades. You can't sell out of an empty basket. You might be, and it's such a simple concept, but think about it. You might be the best salesperson in the world, like the best beer salesperson, cider salesperson, whoever it is, right? If you don't have any product to sell at your distributor warehouse, you're not going to sell anything. You're not going to make anything. There's nothing there. Like no matter how much attention you put to it. So something that you need to keep an eye on first and foremost is, do we have consistent inventory? Do I have inventory to sell? Is it available? Do my retailers know about it? Is my distributor aware of the product that I have? And how can I just constantly remind them, like, hey, my new seasonal is coming. My new special release is coming. By the way, don't forget about my flagship. You know what I mean? Like just sort of like an overall view of this. And the tool that I just like, tossed in this very like pretend, you can see it says template example on there, totally made up beer name. But I like to use a brand calendar for the wholesale channel. By the way, anyone that's in production on here, don't freak out on me. You can still make whatever you want to for the tap room. So I'm not telling you you have to stick to this, but for wholesale, you would want to stick to a consistent brand calendar that's kind of set up for the whole year. Because what that does, it allows you to plan ahead strategically for, oh, my distributor should be taking my hazy IPA in February because it's supposed to hit the market in March, right? Or I need to be talking with my distributor partner about my fruited sour that's going to come out in May. I know that it takes them about 2 weeks to, pick up an order. And I know it takes about 2 weeks for them to put a PO together. So that means at the beginning of May or the end of April, I need to be, or I'm sorry, I misspoke. That comes out in May, like the end of March or beginning of April, that I need to go to like my brand manager or the purchasing manager and say like, hey, yoo-hoo, I've got another beer coming out. First of all, is it in your item catalog? What do we need to do to make that happen? Second of all, can we do some projections together? This is what I would like to sell. Please let me know what you think you guys can sell on your side, and let's meet in the middle. And third, let's talk about what that actually looks like. Of what do we want to get to the warehouse? When is it going to ship? And what PO is it going to go on? And that stands for product order, by the way. So it is something that you have to stay on top of all the time. This is something that's also in Beer30. So you can track like shipments to your distributor. You can track what went in. PK, I'm sure you can elaborate more on that in just a second about how that dynamic works, but it's definitely trackable in Beer30 and fifth ingredient products. So that is something I feel like the brand calendar is like the brainchild for all of my client partners. We do so much with it. Because it really does help you like lay out a good picture of like the entire year. And the other way that it helps combat sort of like fighting for mind share is that you can give your distributor partner a tool like this. You're setting up expectations without even realizing that you're like consciously doing that. So you're basically saying, hey, I've got these year-round products. I want you to continuously focus on those all the time. And something that's not written on this slide that I want you to know is those go from top down for priority when it comes to year-round flagship. So I'm telling my distributor partner, I want you to focus on my generic IPA, like number one, if that's like the only thing that you talk to accounts about me. That's my most important offering, followed by, Helles, American Wheat, porter, stuff like that. And then, oh, by the way, I have these like limited occasional releases, seasonal stuff like that. And this is when they're going to hit the market. So I just want you to be prepared for that. The other thing,
Nice.
I say this all the time, excuse me, and that hope is not a strategy. And I'm not trying to be mean or morbid when I say this, but the way, it feeds into the whole idea of, keeping up with POs, using a brand calendar, figuring out like SOPs for the whole year, because hang on one second, my voice is failing me. Getting water. All
In
right.
the meantime, I was gonna say you immediately triggered like high school English class where it was like hope is the thing with feathers by Emily Dickinson, and like the poem associated with that, and that it just always flies away. So that's exactly what I thought about as soon as you say that.
It's funny that you say it. No, and some people think I'm being overly pessimistic, and I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not telling you, excuse me, that you shouldn't hope that your brewery does better. Like everybody hopes for like more sales and increases in profit and revenue streams and things like that. But you can't just hope it into existence. You have to have like a concrete strategic plan, and you do have to have data that helps you do that. So that's what I'm saying when I say hope is not a strategy. And with some of these tools, PO tracking, like what's going into your different wholesale partners, what's going into accounts, being organized with a brand calendar and creating actions off of that, taking you from hoping you'll do better to actually giving you the best possible chance of doing better and increasing sales.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
hopefully that makes sense.
That's great. Yeah, Julie. I mean, this calendar piece is really critical in general as you're thinking about just the variety, right? And just like understanding, well, do you just want to have the same exact core item all the time, or do you want something that's specific based on seasonality, based off of, special events that you're having and things? So it's really cool to actually see this example of it being graphed out as well. So really cool on this one. And I think adding on to that as well, it's really getting into the idea of just the concept of demand planning, right? And so this is a very interesting one, which is that at the end of the day, in order to do what Julie just mentioned about being able to fulfill orders, you need to plan ahead, right? And so with that, the three key elements that fall under demand planning are sales forecast, production forecast, and demand report. And the key thing that I want to emphasize here is that whether you're using spreadsheets or using a software like Beer30 or other inventory management systems, you got to realize that this is just really one big optimization problem that you need to solve, right? And so really when you start breaking this down, in order to do what Julie's saying about really understanding what it is in terms of staying on top of inventory levels, the last thing is that you want somebody picking up the phone, a distributor or wholesaler calling up your brewery and saying, hey, I need 15 kegs of IPA next week or 2 weeks out. And you're like, I don't even have the orders or ingredients or things to brew with it. And that's a really big problem. And so when you start breaking it down, the first step is sales forecast. And if you take a look, this is a great screenshot that indicates exactly what's happening from a month-over-month perspective out of Beer30. And really the question that you're answering is, what does the sales team think that will be sold in the upcoming months? And one thing you'll notice here in this diagram is that we have this really cool concept of velocities and adjustments. So that way you can really understand where, let's say it's a core brand, hey, that's always consistent at X number of barrels or kegs or case equivalents a month. And hey, maybe it's a seasonal that changes, or maybe because of seasonality, that core brand, like your porter, maybe it doesn't need as many sales during the summer months as opposed to your lager, which may actually increase, right? And so this is where you're really focusing on that sales forecast piece to really understand, well, what is the sales team planning on selling? From there, the next piece is, well, sales team is telling me this is what they want to sell. Well, we break it down by SKU, and then we take it a step further with the production forecast. Well, you're telling me you want me to brew all these things. Well, what does my tank residency time and volumes really tell me between brewing, fermenting, filter, bright tank, and packaging, right? And you need to be able to really understand, well, at a monthly level or even granular to week over week, am I going to be able to produce that many number of kegs, cans, or bottles, right? And so that's really where that production side comes in, because if somebody calls you up today and says, hey, it's Wednesday, March 6th. I need this huge order 3 weeks from now. Well, you effectively have 21 days to get everything acknowledged and up and running. And it's going to be very difficult if that beer that they're asking for has a 28-day tank turnaround time, right? And so this is where all those aspects from production forecasts really need to be planned in as part of the entire demand report and demand planning piece. So from there, we
Yeah,
have the sales. Yeah, go for it.
Oh no, I was just going to tell people like this is something just so everybody knows. Like, um, I always tell people it's fun to talk about this in theory with like the screenshots and the software and all that kind of stuff. But literally, I do this with all of my clients, like across the board. We set the brand calendar. We figure out what we're going to be selling, the ratios of like package to keg, the different keg sizes, the different package sizes, and literally we pick it apart with like we just start like one big projection and then we go by distributor, we go by month, we go by item, we go by package size. And then so my production folks don't like hate me. I translate it into barrels from CEs so that I don't get yelled at.
Yep. Yeah, you'll actually notice here on this top right, it says all volumes in BBLs. And in that sales diagram, you'll notice we get forecast units in BBLs or CEs because we know
That's
that
perfect.
people have that. Yeah, people have that variation. Cool. And so you have your sales. Now you have like, great, we actually can brew and actually get stuff out the door. Well, let's put things together, right? And this is where that demand report really combines together the sales details and the production details to really make sure whether or not you're hitting your goals. And so this is where you should be able to trend out. And again, whether you're using Beer30 or whether you're using another software or spreadsheets, the key is really making sure that you're incorporating, as you can see in this graph or this diagram, what's your starting inventory? What's your production forecast? Scheduled forecast, packaging forecast, the actual amount that's being packaged off, and comparing those directly to your sales forecast, maybe published orders, draft orders, and really being able to understand how those two systems that your sales team is running and your production team is running really integrate together and where those flags are going to be or where you're not going to actually be able to meet those demands. And the key with this then is, let's say everything is green, everything looks hunky-dory, materials, MRP. And now we get into that final piece of this puzzle of, well, do I have the right raw materials and packaging supplies to actually get this done? Right? So it's really, like I said at the beginning, it's a one big optimization problem to make sure you're never out of stock of your particular beers. Because if you take a look at this, hey, I'm running low on my Beast brown rice as of next week on March 11th, and I have a brew that's scheduled. So it looks like I need to order it. And so this is where, based on lead times and POs, you have suggested orders to actually then be able to understand what's going on from a material resource perspective as well. So again, all part of you work with Julie on getting the actual brand calendar, understanding what are the SKUs that are selling. The only way to do that is you got to have a gap analysis, right? You need to be able to look at your past data to understand, well, what are the beers that are trending? What are the beers that aren't? And then you really work your way down into making sure that you're getting granular enough to know, hey, I have the grains, hops, adjuncts, yeast, canning supplies, bottling supplies, and kegging supplies to get the job done.
Absolutely. Yeah, I wish I had this I had a client last month that we were supposed to release this like strawberry IPA kind of thing. And we didn't realize that the lead time had changed for the strawberry ingredients that they were going to put into that beer. And our Valentine's Day date got shot out of the water like almost immediately because the company for the raw materials informed us that they do it like custom every single time, like the mix of stuff, and it like threw it off like crazy. So yeah, knowing ahead of time, especially lead times, is going to be incredibly important for raw materials.
Lead times are critical. Yep, for sure. Yeah. Cool. So with that, we get to our issue number 3, quality. Quality issues at the account level. So at the end of the day, you're all here for not a hobby, but a business. A business requires you to have good quality of beer. At this day and point, if you are a brewery that's not producing high quality beer, people are just going to go to another brewery down the road. So with that, Julie, over to you for quality.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different things that can happen. Quality is kind of like this big bucket, right? It includes like a whole bunch of things. But I think all of us here realize like shit just happens like for no like it's like you're back of the house. Like something's always broken, right? You always need a tool. Something's always going wrong. The same thing can happen in the wholesale channel. So biggest thing is, you don't want bad beer sitting on the shelf. That's like a big one. That's a given. Like you want the freshest, highest quality product going out to your folks. The hard part about this with the wholesale channel is that the more hands that you put on a product, the higher the risk of having quality issues. And with wholesale, you have like the maximum number of hands where your product is like changing hands and being shuffled around. And there's a lot of times where things that could impact the quality of your liquid are completely out of your control. Like, did you have a crazy driver and did the beer get like endlessly shook it up? You know what I mean? Did the pallet fall over? Like, did somebody put the wrong UPCs on something? There's like a million things that could go wrong from the second it leaves your brewery or production facility all the way to when it gets into the hand of the retailer and the stocker that's putting it on the shelf, right? So being able to see things like batch numbers, where that beer came from in the beginning, being able to like trace that whole supply chain pipeline, like from your facility to a truck to a warehouse and being checked in and then getting on another order and being picked and in another truck and then making it to the retailer. At that point, it's kind of hard to track exactly what's going on. But if you have a system for tracking and finished goods tracking, you'll be able to locate that even faster, because what you want to do when you have to kind of put out fires and troubleshoot things with retail accounts is that you want them to, first of all, be informed about exactly what's going on. Second, have, peace of mind, like reassurance that you're on top of it and that you have a way for like solving the problem. And third, you want to make sure that everybody's on the same page, because when people get different narratives, whether it's like something you say as a supplier rep, something that the distributor sales rep says, something that the brand manager says versus the shift leader that happened to be at the bar that day where you found like problems. You just want to make sure that everybody is kind of giving the same narrative all the time. And when you have something like finished goods tracking, you're going to be able to say, okay, first of all, buyer, I recognize there's a problem. I apologize. That is not on par with our standards. We apologize for that happening, but please know that I have XYZ that's helping me locate exactly where it is. We're going to get it taken care of right away. I'm liaisoning with my distributor partner and the sales rep and their logistics team to pull it back, get it picked up, get it replaced with fresh product. And then that way you have reassurance on multiple levels. First of all, the buyer knows that you're a proactive supplier partner. Most likely they're not going to be too mad at you. Some of them will write you off. It happened. It's fine. But most of them will appreciate the information and the updates that you can get for them and that the care you're taking with their particular account. Number two, it helps with mind share, right? From your distributor, because your distributor now understands like, okay, they're on top of their stuff, right? I need to pay more attention to that brand because they're organized. They have track records of what's happening. There's traceability. And I know that stuff goes wrong like every now and then with just about any brand. I can rely on them to get it taken care of before it gets out of control, right? And it's just good practices, honestly, as a business owner and a producer of like liquid consumables that you are putting into other people's bodies. It's just good due diligence to make sure that you're giving the highest quality liquid in whatever package it is and making sure that goes out to the people in a timely manner. Another branch of this is like a recall, right? Like maybe something went wrong. Recall sounds so bad, by the way. There's smaller things that can happen that maybe you just don't feel like something is a good representation of like your quality standards and you just want to pull it back. It's consumable, right? Is there anything wrong with it? Probably not. It's okay for people to drink, but maybe it's just not a good representation of what you would like to see put out in the world with your name on it. I know sometimes with like adjuncts and things that we put into beverages, sometimes you get stuff like secondary fermentation that you didn't expect, maybe some kind of small infection that you didn't see coming. maybe it came from like a can or a canning line or, something like that. So please know you would, kind of take care of this in the same way. And that is trace it, get it figured out, let everybody know what's going on, and make sure everybody's on the same page about what's going to happen next and what the next steps are. And PK and I talked about this before. This is something that I see happening more and more often. And as more craft brands start getting into like chains and selling into like chain accounts and national accounts, having the wrong UPC on a label, or, heaven forbid, like a printed can, like something that's like X on there for
I think
forever.
this is where that oh shit event happens, right? That's exactly
Absolutely.
what that
This is like
is.
the ultimate like oh shit moment. And that is, oh God, we have the wrong UPC. This is scanning as, I had one the other day that had something scanning from somebody on the opposite side of the United States, which is frightening. So a lot of the time you'll outsource like a label design, or you have like a branding agency that'll do a label design, or, maybe like an artist or a contractor or something. Honestly, even your in-house people can mess stuff up. Maybe you fat finger a digit, a check digit or something on the UPC. Like, again, it happens. You know what I mean? Like, stuff just happens. And so once you know that the UPC is wrong, you're going to have to catch it when it's out in the retail setting, right? So being able to trace it and trace finished goods, you're going to be able to say like, okay, we recognize this is totally wrong. Okay, who did we sell it to? First of all, let's find all the places that we sold it to, right? Second, let's talk to the distributor. There's a problem. We know about the problem. We're getting an account list together to see where it went. And then finally, can we trace it? Like, where did it come from? Was it just one batch? Was it multiple? Like, did we get different labels at a certain time? Like, what sort of changed? And how many things we need to gather up. Now, a thing like a UPC fix is very, very expensive. And PK, you can go over to the next slide if you want to. There, we talked about the idea of, sometimes, oh, we'll come back to VIP. Sorry. I jumped ahead a little bit.
You're good.
But sometimes you get into situations where you can actually file like an insurance claim if you have something like an incorrect UPC, because that's time, that's effort, that's lost sales on something that is completely out of your control. So if you're able to have product traceability, finished goods traceability, you can actually back it up and get all the details for it and give the right amount for like a monetary value for something that you need to get back on your side.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that. So that's great, Julie. Thanks. So just taking one step back, right? So when it comes to distribution inventory levels, one of the big things to always keep in mind is that as you're making these orders that Julie is talking about, at any time, you should know the production batch codes and quantity for beer that are sitting in your facility cold box, right? I should be able to look at any snapshot that's there to be able to know exactly how many kegs, how many cans, how many bottles do I have of a particular SKU, but also more importantly, aging reports, right? How old is the beer that's sitting there? If you have product that is getting into that like 30, 60, 90, 120 days, that usually indicates an element of like, hey, we got to have our sales team really start pushing this product because your shelf life may only be 6 months, 9 months, a year, whatever it is before the best buy date. And you never want that beer just like sitting in your cold box, in your facility cold box, and not actually getting rotated and turned. And so with that, once you actually know, and this is some screenshots of our finished goods traceability diagram, once you get that going in, really, as you're then assigning batches that are going out into the market on sales orders, you want to actually be able to assign the actual batch codes themselves. So this is where on every single order, hey, I have 4 cans of my brown sugar ale and 2 kegs of my Japanese IPA. Well, I want to add in batch code 11 and batch code 01, so that way I know exactly where it's going. And then what's great about that is that if there ever is a product recall for any reason, you're then able to run a report in theory where you have the brand and the batch number, and you can see all the orders that went out. And if you notice here, it's with Bev Group. Here are the 4 cans that we just talked about, the total dollar value that each of those was on a price each. And the benefit of that ends up being that as they get delivered, again, as Julie's mentioning, if there ever is an element that your raw material supplier says, hey, we had an issue with two-row, your yeast supplier says, hey, there was a batch of yeast that we shipped out to you that was not good, or even on a packaging side where, hey, maybe there was an issue with packaging supplies, or maybe even internally you found that your can seams or your crowns weren't actually getting applied correctly, and now there's an uptick in DO. Well, those are all aspects of quality that really tie in from a traceability product recall perspective to make sure that they're being handled appropriately. So this really comes into effect of like quality at the end of the day is the name of the game. And if you're properly tracking those batch codes in cold box on every single order, and then in case there ever is an issue of knowing exactly which accounts they went to, you'll be at a really good spot in case the worst happens and you do have a product recall.
Absolutely. And I think it'll transition into VIP. I definitely don't want to skip over that
Yeah, we
too
can
much,
just do like
but
a 2-3 minute thing and then open it up for questions on this for sure.
sure. Because I know, I don't know how many people on the call speak VIP like I do. That's kind of, like the gold standard for like distributor or account level, sales reporting. But with the integration that you would get like through this craft portal environment, that would add to it, right? So you'd not only have like order to the distributor, but then you'd also be able to see like orders to accounts, and you would be able to follow it through the entire like supply chain cycle, basically. Or I guess you could say wholesale chain cycle of where it's actually going. And so you can see where things go, and it makes it easy to have it in one place on one dashboard instead of like jumping around and going to all the different spreadsheets and all the things.
Yep, awesome. And yeah, I think that's just part of it, right? So just adding on to what Julie just said is when you think about this loop between brew process, craft portal, distributors, and sales order, we're really coming back to our same core concepts again, just in this loop manner as well, because Beer30 does integrate with craft portal, but it's effectively taking the same ideas of, well, we know exactly what we need to produce. This is our sales order and forecast. Well, Beer30 actually doing the demand planning and tracking, allowing people to actually make their orders that then gives you the actual data set that's there. So really ties in from a circular loop perspective of being able to track those pieces of information. So nice.
Absolutely.
So with that, just really that's kind of what we have in terms of this overall webinar, but really open for questions from anybody in the audience. And it doesn't have to be even about the topic that we're talking about. It can be in general from any information that Julie and I can provide to you.
Yeah, definitely. People feel free to either just unmute and shout it out or put it in the chat. And
Yeah.
I told PK before this, I was like, you can ask questions about what we just talked about, but also like I do a whole bunch of different things. So if you have random questions about any of the things that I listed off at the beginning, like sales, marketing, distribution, expansion, product launches, any of that stuff, just feel free to let it rip.
Cool. Last call.
Unless we have a lot of shy people.
Yeah. No worries. Awesome. Cool. Well, in that case, thank you everybody for joining in today. You have our information. We'll be sending out a follow-up PDF of the slides and video recording as well, so that way everybody has it. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out directly to me or Julie, and we'll be able to go from there.
Yeah, you can find me at notyourhobbymarketing.com, and it's just me, Julie, Julie at notyourhobbymarketing.com, and you can bounce stuff off of me anytime.
Sounds great. Awesome. Cool. Thanks everyone. Have a great Wednesday and have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.